Lucy dropped her suitcase. The wheels hit the concrete with a hollow crack that echoed louder than it should have. Lucas? Her voice trembled. The man standing in the doorway didn't look happy to see her. He looked irritated, annoyed, almost like she was a problem. "What are you doing here?" Lucas asked flatly. Lucy blinked, her chest tightening. I came to surprise you." There was a long pause. No smile, no hug, no warmth. Just silence. Then, "Didn't you get the hint?" Her heart dropped. "What?" Lucas exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair like this was exhausting for him. "I stopped replying. I stopped picking your calls. What more did you want me to do, Lucy?" Each word landed like a slap. Lucy's fingers slowly loosened from the handle of her suitcase. "I thought maybe you were busy. Maybe something happened." "Yeah," he said coldly. Something did happen. I moved on." The world went quiet. Like everything around her just disappeared. "Moved on?" she whispered. Lucas let out a dry laugh. "Come on, Lucy, be realistic. You're 43 now. I could never be with an older woman." Her eyes started to water. "I supported you," she said, her voice breaking, "for 4 years. Lucas, I sent you almost everything I had." "Yeah, and I appreciated it, but that doesn't mean I owe you my life." Her lips trembled. "I thought we were building something." "We were, at the time." The words cut deeper than anything else. At the time. Before she could respond, a woman's voice came from inside. "Lucas, who is it?" Lucy froze. Lucas didn't even hesitate. "My past," he muttered. And then she appeared. A black woman, beautiful, younger, holding a baby. Lucy's breath caught in her throat. The woman stepped closer, confused. "Who?" Lucy couldn't even speak. Lucas sighed. "This is Lucy, someone I used to date." Used to date. Like she hadn't spent 4 years sacrificing everything for him. Like she wasn't the reason he even made it to Korea. The woman shifted the baby on her hip. "Oh." Lucy's eyes dropped to the child. "How old is he?" she asked faintly. "1," Lucas replied. 1. Her knees gave out. She dropped to the ground, right there at the doorway. The same doorway she had imagined him opening with a smile, pulling her into his arms, telling her everything was worth it. Instead, she was on the floor, crying, shaking, breaking. "You have a child," she whispered. Lucas looked uncomfortable now. "Look, Lucy, you need to go." She looked up at him like she didn't recognize him anymore. "I gave you everything." "And I'm telling you it's over," he snapped. "What do you want me to do? Leave my wife and child for you?" The word wife shattered something inside her. Wife. He had married someone else, built a whole life, while she was sending him 80% of her salary every month, while she was dreaming about their future, while she was waiting. Lucy let out a broken sob. "I came all the way here." "That was your choice," Lucas said bluntly. The woman beside him looked uncomfortable now, shifting slightly. Lucas stepped forward, grabbing Lucy's suitcase and dragging it outside. "You can't stay here." And then he shut the door, right in her face. Lucy stared at it, hoping, praying. Maybe he would open it again. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe. Nothing. The door stayed closed, locked, final. Her breathing became uneven, sharp, painful. She slowly stood up, gripping her suitcase like it was the only thing holding her together. The street was quiet, foreign, cold. She had no home, no plan, no one. Just a broken heart in a country she had never even been to before. And then she started walking. By the time Lucy reached the park, it was already dark. Her legs felt numb. Her eyes burned from crying. Every step felt heavier than the last. She spotted a bench and collapsed onto it. The suitcase tilted beside her. She didn't care. She covered her face with both hands. and cried. Not softly, not quietly, but the kind of crying that comes from deep inside your chest, the kind that makes it hard to breathe. "How could he do this to me?" she whispered between sobs. 4 years. 4 years of sacrifice. 4 years of believing. 4 years of love. Gone, like it meant nothing. Her chest tightened. Her breathing sped up. She tried to inhale, but it wouldn't come. Her hands started shaking. "I can't breathe." Panic. Her vision blurred. Her heart raced uncontrollably. "I can't." "Hey!" The voice startled her. Lucy looked up through her tears. A man stood in front of her. Tall, calm, well-dressed, his expression unreadable. "Are you okay?" he asked. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. Just more tears. The man frowned slightly. He glanced up at the sky. Thunder rumbled in the distance, then back at her. "You shouldn't be out here." Lucy shook her head weakly, still struggling to breathe. "I don't have—" Her voice broke completely. The first drops of rain began to fall. The man hesitated, just for a second, like he was debating something internally. Then he sighed. "So come with me." Lucy blinked. "What?" "You'll get sick if you stay here. Can you stand?" She didn't move, didn't trust herself to move, didn't even know if this was real. The rain started falling harder now. "I'm not going to hurt you," he added, his tone calmer this time. "But you can't stay here." Lucy looked at him, really looked at him. There was something about him, not warm, not soft, but steady, safe. And right now, that was enough. She nodded weakly. Okay." He reached for her suitcase first, then gestured for her to follow. Lucy stood slowly, her legs unsteady, and for the first time since her world collapsed, she walked towards something, not knowing this moment would change everything. Across the city, at the top of a luxury penthouse building, the man finally spoke. "My name is Chae Min-gyu." Lucy swallowed. "Lucy?" "I know," he said quietly. She looked at him confused. He didn't explain. Instead, he opened the door and stepped aside. "Come in." Lucy hesitated, then walked inside and froze. The place was massive, elegant, cold, beautiful. Nothing like the life she had been living, nothing like the future she thought she was coming to. "Sit," Min-gyu said, placing her suitcase down. She sat slowly, still overwhelmed, still shaking, still trying to process everything that had just happened. Min-gyu disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, he returned with a cup. "Drink." She took it with trembling hands. Warm, comforting. She hadn't realized how cold she was until that moment. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once. No smile, no unnecessary words, just quiet presence. Lucy stared down at the cup, and then the tears came back. This time softer, quieter, but deeper. Min-gyu stood there for a moment, watching, listening, and for reasons he didn't fully understand, he didn't walk away. Lucy didn't remember walking to the bedroom. At some point, Min-gyu had shown her the door, said something about towels, about resting. She nodded, but her mind wasn't there. Her body just moved. Now, she sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the cup. The coffee had gone cold. Her hands hadn't stopped shaking. And then it hit her again. Everything. The door slamming, the baby, the word wife. Lucy's chest tightened. A sharp, unbearable pain spread through her. "No," she whispered. Her breathing started to break again. I can't. She stood up abruptly, pacing the room like she was trying to escape something that lived inside her. How did I not see it? How did I not know? Her voice rose, trembled, cracked. I gave him everything. She pressed her hands to her face. I gave him everything. And then she broke, completely, She slid down to the floor, her back against the bed, crying into her palms, not holding back, not trying to be strong, just falling apart. Outside the room, Mingyu stood still, listening. He hadn't meant to, but the walls weren't thick enough to hide that kind of pain. Her cries echoed through the quiet penthouse, raw, unfiltered, familiar. His jaw tightened slightly. 2 years. It had been 2 years. And yet something about that sound pulled at something he had buried deep inside himself. He turned away, walked back to the living room, picked up the glass of water on the table. Didn't drink it, just held it. The silence in the house felt different now. He wasn't alone in it anymore. Lucy cried until there were no tears left, until her body physically couldn't anymore, until exhaustion dragged her under. She didn't even make it onto the bed. She fell asleep on the floor, still in her clothes, still broken. 3:07 a.m. Mingyu was still awake. He sat on the couch, staring at nothing. A small bottle of sleeping pills rested on the table in front of him. He picked it up, turned it slowly in his fingers. Then he heard it, a soft sound, faint, coming down the hallway. He stood up, walked quietly toward the guest room. The door wasn't fully closed. He pushed it slightly open. Lucy, still on the floor, her face tear-strained, her breathing uneven. Even in her sleep, she was hurting. Mingyu's gaze lingered for a moment. Then, he stepped inside, careful, quiet, like he didn't want to disturb something fragile. He grabbed the blanket from the bed, hesitated, then gently draped it over her. Lucy stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Mingyu straightened, looked down at Lucy one last time, and something in his chest shifted, just slightly. He didn't understand it, didn't want to, so he turned away and walked out. The pills stayed untouched on the table. Morning came slowly. Lucy woke up to silence. Soft light filtered through the curtains. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then, everything came rushing back. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. No, her voice was barely a whisper. She sat up slowly, noticed the blanket. She didn't remember covering herself. A small detail, but it made her chest tighten again. Different this time. Quieter. She stood up, wiping her face, walked to the door, opened it. The smell of something warm hit her first. Food. She stepped out cautiously. Mingyu stood in the kitchen, already dressed, sharp, composed, like nothing had happened the night before. He glanced at her briefly. "You're awake?" Lucy nodded. Her voice felt stuck in her throat. Yes?" There was an awkward pause. "There's food," he said simply. "Eat." She looked at the table. Rice. Soup. Simple. Comforting. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten since yesterday, but the thought of food, "I'm not really—" "Eat," he repeated. Not harsh, but firm. Lucy hesitated, then slowly walked to the table, sat down, picked up the spoon. Her hands trembled slightly. She took a small bite, swallowed. It felt heavy, but warm, and somehow that made the second bite easier. Mingyu didn't sit, didn't hover. He just stood at a distance, giving her space, but not leaving. After a few minutes, Lucy spoke, quietly. "I'm sorry." He looked at her. "For what?" "For everything. Last night. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," he replied. She nodded faintly. "He was my boyfriend." Mingyu didn't react, but he listened. "For 4 years," she continued, "I supported him. He came here to study, said he wanted to build a future for us." Her voice started shaking again. "I sent him most of my salary, every month." Mingyu's gaze shifted slightly. Not pity. Something else. Understanding, maybe. Lucy let out a weak, humorless laugh. I thought I was being a good partner. There was silence. I got older, and he found someone younger. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Ugly. Real. Lucy looked down at her hands. I didn't even know when it started, when he stopped loving me. Mingyu finally spoke. Some people don't know how to value what they have. Lucy looked up, surprised. That was the longest sentence he had said. Their eyes met, just for a second. Something unspoken passed between them. Then he looked away, breaking it. Lucy swallowed. I need a job. Any job. I can't go back. Not like this. Her voice was steadier now. Desperate, but determined. I can clean, cook, anything. I need to survive. Mingyu didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window, looked out over the city, thinking. Lucy waited, her heart pounding. This was it. If he said no, she had nothing. Nowhere to go. No one to call. Minutes felt like hours. I need a housekeeper. Lucy blinked. What? He turned to face her. My previous one left. I haven't replaced her. Her breath caught. You mean, you can stay here, work here. I'll pay you. Lucy stood up quickly, too quickly. Her chair scraped against the floor. Yes, I can do that. I can do everything. I promise. I won't be a problem. I don't like noise, he interrupted. She stopped. I leave early. I come back late. Just keep the place in order. Lucy nodded rapidly. I will. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is not charity, he added. The words stopped her again. It's work. Lucy swallowed. I understand. But her eyes were already filling with tears again. Not from pain this time. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Mingyu noticed, but said nothing. That same day, Lucy started working. She cleaned every corner of the penthouse, carefully, thoroughly, like her life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. She organized the kitchen, wiped every surface, arranged things neatly. Then, she cooked. Not because he asked, but because it felt right. Normal. Grounding. By the time evening came, the place looked different, warmer, lived in. Mingyu returned later than expected, as always. He stepped inside and paused. Something smelled different. Better. He walked into the kitchen. Mingyu stood there, wearing a simple uniform she had found among cleaning supplies. She turned when she heard him. Oh, welcome back. He frowned slightly. What are you wearing? Lucy blinked. The uniform? I thought. Don't wear that. She blinked. Sorry? You don't need it. Just dress normally. Lucy hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Mingyu looked around. The place was spotless, organized, different. His gaze returned to her. You did all this today? Yes. There was a pause. Good. It wasn't praise, but it was something. Lucy smiled faintly, for the first time in days. That night, Mingyu lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The pills sat on his bedside table, untouched. From down the hallway, faint sounds, movement, life. Someone else in the house. It felt unfamiliar, uncomfortable, and yet not entirely unwelcome. He closed his eyes, still expecting sleep to avoid him, like always. But this time, for reasons he couldn't explain, it came easier. Not perfect, not peaceful, but different. And in another room, Lucy lay in bed, staring into the dark. Her life had fallen apart in one night. Everything she believed in, gone. And yet, here she was, under a stranger's roof, with a job, with a second chance. She placed a hand over her chest. Her heart still hurt, deeply. But beneath the pain, there was something else. Something small, something fragile. Hope. The house settled into a rhythm. Quiet, predictable, safe. Lucy woke up early every morning, cleaned, cooked, kept everything in perfect order. Mingyu left before the sun fully rose and returned long after it set. Most days, they barely spoke. Just simple exchanges. Good morning. Good evening. Food is ready. Okay. Nothing more. No personal questions, no emotional conversations. Just distance. And yet, something was changing. Slowly. Silently. A week later, Lucy stepped outside for the first time alone. She needed air, space, something that wasn't walls and memories. She walked down the street holding a small bag. Her eyes took everything in. The signs, the people, the unfamiliar language flowing around her. It still felt strange, like she didn't belong. But at least it didn't hurt as much as before. She found a small library tucked between two buildings. Quiet, peaceful. She stepped inside. The smell of books hit her instantly. And for the first time in days, she felt calm. "Excuse me?" Lucy turned. A man stood a few feet away. Black, around her age, friendly expression. "Are you new here?" he asked. Lucy hesitated, then nodded. "Is it that obvious?" He chuckled lightly. "A little." She gave a small smile. "I'm David." "Lucy." "Nice to meet you, Lucy." Something about hearing her name spoken kindly again. It softened something inside her. They talked. At first, small things. Where she was from, how long she'd been in Korea. Then a little more. Not everything, but enough. David didn't push, didn't pry. He just listened. And for Lucy, that mattered more than anything. That evening, Mingyu stood by the window. His tie loosened slightly, his expression unreadable. Below, he saw them, Lucy and a man, laughing, walking side by side. His gaze narrowed slightly. He didn't move, didn't look away. He just watched. The man said something. Lucy laughed again. Soft, genuine. The kind of laugh he had never heard from her inside the house. Something tightened in his chest. Unfamiliar, uncomfortable. He didn't like it, didn't understand it. So he stepped back from the window and walked away. The door opened. Lucy stepped inside, still smiling faintly. She placed her bag down, then froze slightly. Mingyu stood in the living room, waiting. She hadn't noticed him at first. "Oh, you're back." "I am." There was a pause. She suddenly felt aware of everything. Her movements, her voice, her presence. Mingyu spoke. "You made a friend." It wasn't a question. Lucy blinked. "Yes." Another pause. "That's good," he added. But something about the way he said it didn't feel entirely good. Lucy studied his face, trying to read him, but as always, nothing. Just calm. Controlled distance. "His name's David," she said, unsure why she felt the need to explain. Mingyu nodded once, then turned slightly. "Dinner?" "It's ready," she replied quickly. And just like that, the moment ended. But the feeling didn't. The next day, Lucy stood in the kitchen, cooking. The soft sound of oil sizzling filled the space. She moved with ease now, comfortable, focused. Then she felt it. A presence. She turned. Mingyu stood at the entrance, watching her. She hadn't heard him come in. "Oh, you're early today." "I finished work sooner." He didn't leave, didn't sit. He just stayed there. Lucy suddenly felt nervous, for no reason she could explain. "Is something wrong?" Mingyu stepped closer, slowly. "No." There was a pause. Then, Where did you meet him? Lucy blinked. David? Yes. The library. I just went out for some air and we started talking. Mingyu nodded slightly. His eyes didn't leave her. And you're comfortable with him? The question caught her off guard. I think so. You think? Lucy let out a small, awkward laugh. I mean, I don't know him that well yet, but he seems nice. The air shifted. Something, invisible, heavy. Mingyu stepped closer again. Now he was right there. Too close. Lucy's breath caught slightly. Be careful, he quieted. Her heart skipped. Why? Not everyone is who they appear to be. Their eyes locked, and suddenly it wasn't about David anymore. It was something else, something deeper, unspoken. Lucy swallowed. I understand. Neither of them moved. The space between them felt charged, like something was about to happen, something neither of them expected. Mingyu's chest rose slightly, fell. His gaze dropped for a second, to her lips, then back to her eyes. Lucy noticed. Her pulse quickened instantly. The sound of the stove snapped her back. Oh! She turned quickly, stirring the food, breaking the moment, breaking whatever that was. Mingyu stepped back just as suddenly. I'll be in my room, he said. His voice was normal again, controlled, like nothing had happened. Lucy nodded. Okay. He walked away, but the air he left behind still felt warm. That night, Mingyu sat on his bed, staring at nothing. His mind replayed the moment over and over. The way she looked at him, the way his heart reacted. Fast, too fast, unfamiliar, unwanted. This is nothing, he muttered to himself, but it didn't feel like nothing. He stood up abruptly, pacing slightly. I don't need this. His voice was low, firm, like he was trying to convince himself. And then he made a decision. Distance. That's what he needed. The next few days, he avoided her, completely. Left earlier than usual, came back even later. Short answers, no eye contact, no unnecessary interaction. Lucy noticed immediately. Of course she did. At first, she thought she had done something wrong. Maybe the conversation about David, maybe the kitchen moment. Maybe she crossed a line without realizing. So she gave him space, stayed quiet, focused on her work. But the silence started to feel different, heavy, uncomfortable. One night, Lucy couldn't sleep. She tossed, turned, her mind restless, her chest tight for reasons she didn't fully understand. She sat up, looked around the room. Then her eyes landed on something. The piano. In the living room. She had noticed it before but never touched it. Tonight, something pulled her toward it. She stood slowly, walked out. The house was silent. Mingyu's room door was closed. She hesitated, then sat at the piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys. For a moment, she just stared. Then she pressed one key, soft, clear. It echoed gently through the room. Her chest tightened again. Memories, old ones, before everything, before Lucas, before pain. She closed her eyes and started playing. In his room, Mingyu's eyes opened. The sound reached him instantly. Soft, familiar, impossible. He sat up slowly, listening. His heart started to beat faster. No, it couldn't be. Not again. He stood, walked toward the door, opened it. The music grew clearer, closer. He stepped into the hallway, each step slower than the last, like he was afraid of what he would see. Then he reached the living room and stopped. Lucy, sitting at the piano, playing, her fingers moving effortlessly, her eyes closed. And then she started singing, soft, beautiful, raw. Mingyu froze, his chest tightened painfully, because that sound, that exact sound, it belonged to someone else, someone he had lost, someone he hadn't allowed himself to remember like this. His wife, the way she used to play, the way she used to sing. Lucy's voice filled the room, warm, alive. healing. Mingyu stood in the doorway, hidden, watching, listening, and for the first time in 2 years, he didn't feel empty, he didn't feel numb. He felt something, something real, something dangerous, something he wasn't ready for but couldn't walk away from. And that night, without realizing it, everything changed. Mingyin didn't realize when he fell asleep. One moment, he was standing in the hallway listening to Lucy's voice drift through the penthouse like something out of a memory he had tried to bury. The next, darkness, silence, rest. Morning came too quickly. Sunlight slipped through the curtains. Mingyu's eyes opened slowly, and for a second, he just stared at the ceiling, still, quiet. Then, his brows furrowed. Something felt different. He sat up, ran his hair through his hair. Wait, he hadn't taken the pills. His eyes moved to the bedside table. The bottle sat there, untouched. A full night of sleep. No interruptions, no nightmares, no memories dragging him back. Just sleep. Real sleep. For the first time in 2 years. Mingyu exhaled slowly, almost like he didn't believe it. How? And then the memory hit him. The piano, her voice. Lucy. He got out of bed, walked out of his room. The smell of food greeted him immediately. Warm, familiar, comforting. Lucy stood in the kitchen, moving quietly, humming softly, almost to herself. Mingyu paused, watched her. There was something light about her this morning, something peaceful, like the weight she carried had loosened, even if just a little. She turned and froze when she saw him. "Oh, good morning." Mingyu didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her, really looked, like he was seeing her for the first time. Lucy shifted slightly under his gaze. "Is everything okay?" A beat. Then, "Good morning," he said. Lucy blinked, surprised, because this was different. His voice. It wasn't cold. It wasn't distant. It was softer. She smiled without thinking. "Breakfast is ready." He nodded, walked to the table, sat down. Lucy placed the food in front of him. Their fingers brushed, just slightly. Both of them noticed. Neither of them said anything. Mingyu took a bite, paused, looked up at her. "This is good." Lucy's eyes widened slightly. "Thank you." It wasn't a big moment, but for him, it was. And for her, it meant more than it should have. Later that evening, Lucy stood in the living room, nervous, her phone in her hand. Mingyu had just returned from work. He loosened his tie as usual, walked in, and immediately noticed something. She looked hesitant, like she wanted to ask something. "What is it?" he said. Lucy swallowed. I wanted to ask you something." He waited. "My friend, David." The name again. That same unfamiliar feeling stirred in his chest, but his face didn't show it. "What about him?" "He wants to visit," she said quickly. "Just for a short time. I thought I should ask you first." There was a pause. Mingyu looked at her, then away, then back again. It shouldn't matter. It didn't matter. And yet... "Fine." Lucy blinked. "Really?" "Yes." Relief washed over her face instantly. "Thank you." Mingyu nodded once, but the feeling in his chest didn't leave. If anything, it got worse. The next day, David arrived. He stood at the door holding flowers, smiling, relaxed. Lucy opened the door and lit up immediately. "David!" "Hey," he said warmly. "I hope I'm not too early." "No, not at all. Come in." He stepped inside, looking around. "Wow, this place is something else." Lucy laughed lightly. "Yeah, it's not mine." David handed her the flowers. "For you." She blinked. "Oh, thank you." She smiled, and that smile didn't go unnoticed. Upstairs, Mingyu stood near the railing, looking down, watching. His jaw tightened slightly. Flowers. He brought her flowers. Something twisted in his stomach, sharp, annoying, unwelcome. He turned away, walked back into his study, sat down, opened his laptop. tried to focus, but nothing made sense. The words blurred together. His mind wasn't there. It was downstairs, with her, with him. He closed the laptop sharply. This is ridiculous. And yet, he stood up, walked out. In the living room, Lucy and David sat on the couch, talking, laughing, easy, comfortable. "So, how are you really doing?" David asked gently. Lucy hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I'm better." "That's good," he said. "You deserve that." Before she could respond, a voice cut in. "Lucy?" She turned. Min-gyu stood there, his expression calm, too calm. "Oh, yes? I need coffee." Lucy blinked. "Now?" "Yes." "Okay." She stood up quickly. "Excuse me for a second." David nodded. "No problem." Lucy walked into the kitchen. Min-gyu followed. The moment they stepped inside, the air shifted again. Lucy moved to the counter, started preparing the coffee. "You didn't tell me he was coming with flowers," Min-gyu said suddenly. Lucy froze for half a second, then continued. "I didn't know he would." There was an awkward silence. "You seem comfortable with him." Lucy glanced at him. "He's just a friend." "Just?" She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Min-gyu stepped closer, not too close, but enough. "To him, are you just a friend?" Lucy's heart skipped. Yes, I think so." "You think," he repeated, the same tone as before, low, controlled, but carrying something underneath. Lucy turned fully to face him. "Why are you asking me this?" Their eyes locked. Min-gyu didn't answer immediately, because the truth didn't make sense. To him, to anyone. Instead, "I just don't want problems in my house." Lucy's expression shifted, slightly. Something about that answer didn't feel right, but she nodded anyway. "I understand." The coffee finished. She handed it to him. Their fingers brushed again. This time, neither of them pulled away immediately. There was silence again, too long. Then, Lucy stepped back, breaking the moment. "I should go back," she said softly. Min-gyu nodded, but didn't move. He just watched her walk away. Lucy returned to the living room, forcing a small smile. "Sorry about that," she said, sitting beside David. "He just needed coffee." David chuckled. "Your boss seems very particular." Lucy let out a light laugh. "That's one way to put it." They resumed talking, but it felt slightly different now. Lucy found herself distracted, her thoughts drifting, back to the kitchen, back to him. Upstairs, in his study, Min-gyu stared at his laptop. Unread emails, unfinished work. None of it made sense. His mind wasn't there. It was downstairs, with her. He exhaled sharply, closing the laptop. "This is ridiculous." And yet, he stood up again. "Lucy!" His voice cut through the living room again. Lucy turned immediately. "Yes?" There was a brief pause. "I'm hungry." Lucy blinked, surprised. "You just got back." "I didn't eat." Another pause. "Okay," she said, standing up. "I'll make something." She glanced at David apologetically. "I'll be quick." David nodded. "Take your time." In the kitchen, Lucy moved quickly, pulling out ingredients, still slightly confused, still slightly aware. She hadn't expected this. Not now, not while she had a guest. Then, she felt it again, that presence. She turned. Min-gyu had followed her in, leaning casually against the counter, watching. Lucy hesitated for a second. "I could have just told me earlier," she said, lightly, trying to ease the tension. "I didn't feel like it." Her hands paused briefly, then continued. Silence settled between them. But it wasn't empty. It was thick, charged. Min-gyu stepped a little closer, not enough to alarm her, just enough to be felt. "What were you talking about?" Lucy glanced at him. "Nothing serious, just life." "And you laugh like that with everyone?" Her heart skipped. What do you mean? With him, Mingyu said. You seem comfortable. Lucy looked away, focusing on the food. He's easy to talk to. And me? Her hand slowed, just slightly. Lucy swallowed. You're different. Mingyu didn't respond, but his gaze didn't leave her. Minutes passed, then more. The food should have been ready already, but neither of them rushed. The conversation stretched, shifted, soft, unplanned. Until a voice echoed faintly from the living room. Lucy, I should probably get going. Lucy froze, her eyes widened. Oh, David? She rushed out, but the door was already closing. She stood there for a second, guilt washing over her. I completely forgot. She grabbed her phone quickly, typing, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you. The message sent. She sighed, turning back slowly. Mingyu stood behind her, watching. You forgot him. Lucy looked down. Yeah. Why? Lucy looked up, caught off guard. I don't know, we were just talking and... And? Lucy hesitated, then looked away. Mingyu's gaze lingered on her face, on the way she couldn't quite meet his eyes, and something inside him settled, not fully, but enough. That night, Lucy lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart restless, confused, because something was happening, something she didn't understand. Every time she was near him, her chest felt tight, her thoughts scattered, her emotions complicated. And that moment in the kitchen, it wasn't nothing. She knew it wasn't. In another room, Mingyu stood by the window, looking out at the city, his reflection staring back at him. You're losing control, he said quietly. But even as he said it, he knew. It was already happening. The house didn't feel the same anymore. It wasn't just quiet, it was aware. Every glance lasted a second longer. Every conversation carried something underneath, something neither of them named, but both of them felt. The next morning, Lucy stood in the kitchen checking the cabinets. We're out of a lot of things, she murmured to herself. Rice was low, vegetables almost gone, even basic ingredients were missing. She sighed softly. I'll have to go to the store. Then go? Mingyu stood, behind her, already dressed, watching. She blinked slightly. Oh, I was just going to... I heard you. Okay. She grabbed her bag, trying to ignore the way her heart picked up slightly just from him being there. I'll be back soon. She moved toward the door, but I'll come with you. Lucy stopped, turned slowly. You will? Mingyu looked completely serious. Yes. Her brows furrowed slightly. You don't have work? I'll go later. That surprised her even more. He had never done this before, never offered, never joined. Okay, she said softly. The grocery store was busy, bright, filled with chatter and movement. Lucy walked beside Mingyu, pushing the cart. At first, it was quiet, awkward. They weren't used to being like this, outside, together, side by side. Do you always cook this much? He asked suddenly. Lucy glanced at him. A lot, yeah. It's comforting. He nodded slightly. I noticed. A small smile touched her lips. You noticed? Yes. That was it, but it was enough. They moved through the aisles slowly, picking items, occasionally brushing hands as they reached for the same thing. Each time, they pulled back just a little too quickly. Each time, the silence that followed felt louder than before. At the checkout, Lucy placed the items on the counter. The cashier, a young woman, scanned them quickly. Then she looked up, at both of them, and smiled. You two make a very good-looking couple. Lucy froze. Her eyes widened instantly. Oh, no, we're not. He's my boss, she added quickly. Too quickly. The smile on the cashier's face didn't fade, but something else did. Something small. Something Lucy didn't catch, but Mingyu did. He didn't say anything, didn't react. But as they walked out, his hands slid into his pockets, his jaw slightly tighter than before. Outside, Lucy let out a small, awkward laugh. That was unexpected. No response. She glanced at him. You didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Lucy looked down. I just didn't want her to get the wrong idea. There was a silence. Why not? The question stopped her. Lucy blinked. What do you mean? Mingyu turned slightly toward her, his expression calm, but his eyes not as neutral. Why is it a problem if someone thinks we're a couple? Her heart skipped. It's not a problem. You corrected her quickly. Lucy swallowed. I didn't want to make things awkward. Another pause. It wasn't awkward for me. The words landed softly, but heavily. Lucy didn't respond because she didn't know how to. That evening, the house felt warmer, not physically, but emotionally. They moved around each other more naturally, spoke more. Even small things felt easier. Do you need help with that? He asked at one point. Lucy looked at him, surprised again. You want to help? I didn't say that. But he didn't leave either. She laughed softly, and that same sound, stayed with him longer than it should have. Days passed, and something shifted. Completely. Mingyu started coming home earlier. Not every day, but more often. Sometimes he would stand in the kitchen doorway, just watching her cook, not speaking, just there. Other times, he would sit in the living room while she played the piano, eyes closed, listening, sleeping easier, breathing deeper. Lucy noticed everything, every small change, every quiet moment. And without realizing it, she started waiting for him too, listening for the door, noticing when he was late, feeling something when he was. One evening, he walked in later than usual. Lucy was already in the living room, the piano silent. She looked up immediately. You're late. The words came out before she could stop them. Mingyu paused, slightly surprised. I had work. Lucy nodded quickly. Of course. I was about to start cooking. A small lie. He noticed, but didn't call it out. I already ate. Something about that made her chest feel off. Oh. There was a pause. I have a business trip. Lucy looked up again. When? Tomorrow. Her stomach dropped. For how long? 5 days. 5 days. The number echoed in her head. Too long. Longer than she expected. Longer than she wanted. Oh, okay. She tried to sound normal, tried to smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Mingyu noticed that too. I'll be back by the end of the week. Lucy nodded. Safe trip. Simple, polite, but something underneath it didn't feel simple at all. The next morning, his suitcase stood by the door, ready. Lucy stood nearby, hands clasped together, not sure what to do, what to say. This felt strange, too heavy for something so normal. I'll take care of everything here, she said. Mingyu nodded. I know. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, thick, uncomfortable, like both of them were waiting for something neither of them understood. Mingyu reached for his suitcase, then stopped. For a brief second, he really looked at her, like he wanted to say something, do something, but instead, I'll see you soon. Lucy nodded. Okay. And just like that, he left. The door closed. The sound echoed through the penthouse, louder than it should have. Lucy stood there, still, listening, to nothing. The house felt different instantly, too quiet, too empty. She exhaled slowly. It's just 5 days. She repeated it to herself, like it would make it easier. It didn't. Day 1, she stayed busy, cleaning, cooking, reading, trying not to think. Day 2, she went to the library, met David briefly, but something felt off. The conversation didn't flow the same. Her mind wandered, back home, back to him. Day 3. The silence became unbearable. She sat at the piano, played, but it didn't feel the same. Not without him there listening. Not without that quiet presence behind her. Why does it feel like this? She whispered. She didn't have an answer. Across the city, Mingyu sat in a meeting. People talked. Numbers, plans, strategies. None of it registered. His pen tapped against the table, restless, distracted. His mind wasn't there. It was somewhere else. A penthouse, a kitchen, a piano. Her. He exhaled sharply, closed his eyes briefly. This is a problem. But even as he said it, he was already standing up. I have to go. The room went quiet. But sir, the meeting. Reschedule it. And without another word, he walked out. Back at the penthouse, Lucy stood in the kitchen, lost in thought, when the doorbell rang. She frowned slightly. Who could that be? She walked to the door, opened it, and froze. Min-gyu stood there, suit slightly wrinkled, eyes locked on hers, like he had been searching for something and just found it. Hi. Lucy blinked. You're back? I couldn't stay away. The penthouse was quiet now, but this time it wasn't heavy. It felt alive. Min-gyu and Lucy stood in the living room. He had just returned from the business trip, unexpectedly early, and the tension that had been building between them for weeks finally reached a breaking point. Lucy's hands were clasped in front of her. Her heart raced. She wasn't sure if it was excitement, fear, or both. Min-gyu stepped closer, the air between them charged with something neither of them could ignore any longer. He began, his voice low, controlled, yet trembling slightly. Lucy looked up at him. What? He swallowed. I can't stop thinking about you, not for a moment, not a single second while I was away. And his chest rose and fell as he struggled to keep the words steady. I don't want to be away from you again. Lucy's eyes widened, her breath hitched. She didn't know how to respond. I didn't expect this, he continued. I didn't expect to feel this way. But every time I hear you laugh, every time I see you smile, every time I hear you sing, it's like everything else disappears. Her hands trembled slightly, and a soft gasp escaped her lips. You're saying you like me? She whispered, almost afraid to confirm it. Min-gyu's gaze softened. More than like. I love you, Lucy. The words hung in the air, warm and heavy. Lucy's heart was pounding. She wanted to run to him, to tell him everything she had been feeling, everything she hadn't dared to admit. She stepped forward slowly, tears forming in her eyes. I think I've been waiting for you to say that, she said softly. I didn't know if you'd ever feel the same. He closed the remaining space between them and took her hands in his. His touch was firm, yet gentle. Lucy, I want to be with you, not as my housekeeper, not as a friend, as everything. Her lips quivered into a small, emotional smile. I want that too, Min-gyu. And then he kissed and hugged her gently. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't careless, it was deliberate, tender, and full of the unspoken emotions that had been building between them for weeks. Lucy melted into his arms. When they finally pulled back, Min-gyu rested his forehead against hers. I've waited a long time to do that, he murmured. So have I, Lucy admitted, her voice breaking slightly. Days passed, and their relationship began to blossom naturally. Min-gyu encouraged her in small ways, letting her play the piano freely, bringing her sheet music, even helping rearrange a small space in the living room for her singing practice. He would quietly sit nearby, listening to her practice, offering the occasional suggestion or compliment. Lucy started feeling more confident. Her voice grew stronger, more expressive. Min-gyu's support was constant, steady, and unwavering. One afternoon, while she was practicing a new song, Min-gyu came into the room, coffee in hand. You sound amazing, he said quietly, leaning against the doorway. Thanks. I've been trying. You don't need to try. You're naturally talented. Her eyes shone. Really? You think so? He smiled, walking over and sitting beside her. I know so, and I want everyone to hear you. The seed of her singing career began to grow that day. Mingyu made calls, arranged a few private showcases, and encouraged her to record some demos. Lucy couldn't believe it. After years of heartbreak and betrayal, she was finally being seen, supported, and loved, not just personally, but professionally. That evening, they sat together on the balcony, overlooking the city lights. Mingyu sipped his tea while Lucy played a soft tune on the piano they had moved out onto the balcony for the night. You know, he said quietly, I never expected to find someone like you. Lucy paused, looking at him. Someone like me? He smiled softly. Strong, brave, beautiful, and full of life, even after everything you've been through. She felt tears prick her eyes. You make it easy to be brave. He reached out, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. I just want you to be happy, and I'll do anything to make sure you are. Lucy leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. I think I am, finally. The city lights twinkled below them, but for Lucy and Mingyu, the world had narrowed down to this quiet, perfect moment. And just as Lucy was beginning to feel secure in her newfound happiness, a notification popped up on her phone. It was a viral post about a Black American man seeking urgent funds online. Lucy's heart sank as she read more. Her stomach twisted when she recognized the name, Lucas Davis. His son needed $100,000 for emergency surgery. She looked up at Mingyu. Without a word, he understood. Let's help him, he said quietly. Lucy's eyes welled with tears. Even after everything he did? Mingyu took her hand. This isn't about him. It's about an innocent child. And you have a kind heart. That doesn't change just because of someone else's betrayal. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. Together, they arranged everything. The hospital bills were paid, and Lucas's son was safe. When Lucas finally appeared in person, kneeling, exhausted and terrified, he looked up at Lucy and Mingyu. I don't know how to thank you, he whispered, his voice choked. Lucy smiled softly. Just take care of him. That's enough. He bowed his head in shame and gratitude. I'm so sorry for everything. Lucy squeezed Mingyu's hand. It's forgiven, but my life has moved on. And just like that, the past was finally laid to rest. Lucy and Mingyu stood together, stronger than ever. Love had found them in the most unexpected way, and nothing could shake them now. The first time Lucy stood on stage, her hands trembled. The lights were too bright, the room too quiet, and for a brief moment, fear crept in. What if I'm not ready? She whispered under her breath. Behind the curtain, Mingyu stood a few steps away, watching her, calm, steady, certain. You are, he said. Lucy turned to him, her eyes searching his face. I don't know if I can do this. He walked closer, not rushing, not overwhelming her, just there. You've already done harder things. This is just you being yourself. Her lips pressed together, her heart still racing. Mingyu reached for her hands, held them, firm, grounding. Look at me. She did. You're not alone out there. I'm right here. And even if the whole world is watching, all I'll see is you. Lucy let out a soft breath. And just like that, the fear didn't disappear, but it became manageable. She nodded. Okay. Lucy Johnson, you're up, the voice called from the stage. Her moment. She looked at Mingyu one last time. He gave her a small nod. That was all she needed. She stepped onto the stage, The lights hit her instantly. For a second, everything blurred. The audience, the space, the noise. Then, she saw it. In the front row, Mingyu, watching her. Not distracted, not moving, just there. Her anchor, her home. Lucy closed her eyes, took a breath, and started singing. The room fell silent, completely. Her voice, soft at first, then stronger, clear, emotional. Every word carried something real, something lived, something earned. She wasn't just singing, she was telling her story. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the loneliness, and the healing. By the time she reached the chorus, her voice filled the entire room, powerful, unshakable. And when she opened her eyes, tears blurred her vision, but she didn't stop. She finished, strong, steady, certain. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the applause exploded, loud, endless, overwhelming. Lucy stood there, frozen, trying to process it, trying to believe it. And then, she looked at him. Mingyu was already standing, clapping, a small smile on his face, but his eyes, full of pride, full of something deeper. Love. Backstage, Lucy didn't even realize she was crying until he pulled her into his arms. "You did it," he said softly. She laughed through tears. "I actually did it." Mingyu pulled back slightly, looking at her. "I told you." She shook her head, smiling. "No, you believed in me. And you proved me right." Everything moved fast after that, faster than Lucy ever imagined. Her performance spread. People talked. More opportunities came. Then more. Then even more. Within months, Lucy wasn't just singing. She was known, recognized, celebrated. Her voice everywhere. But through it all, nothing changed where it mattered. Late nights, she still came home to him. Sometimes exhausted, sometimes overwhelmed, sometimes quiet, but always to him. And Mingyu, he was always there, listening, supporting, steady as ever. One night, Lucy sat at the piano, softly playing. Mingyu watched from the couch, like he always did. She stopped suddenly, turned to him. "Do you ever think about how everything started?" He tilted his head slightly. "In the park?" She nodded. "I was crying, completely broken. And now look at me." Mingyu stood, walked toward her. "Now you're exactly where you were meant to be." Lucy smiled softly. "And you?" He didn't hesitate. "Right where I belong." Their wedding was simple, private, beautiful. No noise, no pressure, just them, choosing each other completely. Years later, the house wasn't quiet anymore, not like before. Laughter filled the space. Tiny footsteps echoed down the halls. "Daddy! Mom!" Two little boys ran across the living room, identical. They had twin boys, full of energy, full of life. Lucy laughed, trying to catch one of them. "Come back here!" Mingyu stood nearby, watching. A rare, full smile on his face. Peace. Real peace. The kind he thought he lost forever. Later that evening, the house finally settled. The boys asleep, the lights dim. Lucy leaned against the balcony railing, looking out at the city. The same city that once held her worst moment. Now, it held her best life. Mingyu walked up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. She leaned back into him instantly. Comfort. Home. "Do you regret anything?" he asked quietly. Lucy thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No." A soft smile touched her lips. "Because if I didn't go through all that," she turned slightly in his arms, "I wouldn't have found you." Mingyu's gaze softened. "And I wouldn't have found you." Somewhere in the city, a man once knelt in regret. But Lucy no longer carried that pain. She had outgrown it, outlived it, outloved it. Because in the end, she didn't lose anything. She gained everything. If this story touched you in any way, don't just scroll away. Take a second and hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and brings more powerful stories like this to you. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were Lucy? Would you forgive or walk away for good? Also, if you believe love can find you again, no matter your age, your past, or your pain, then go ahead and subscribe. Because here, we tell stories that remind you it's never too late to be chosen. I'll see you in the next one.